more broad-based selling in the ag markets today. And here's the thing. The setup looks an awful lot like yesterday when corn, beans, and wheat dropped early and then built back through the rest of the day. Livestock's same deal. Pressure right now. Oh, looky there. The feeder cattle decided to pop higher. Well, we've got some new voices with new ideas this morning on AgriTalk. Live all by myself via Farm Journal broadcast. This is AgriTalk. This morning we begin with a conversation with Craig Rupp from Sabanto, Inc. Then it's Russell Taylor, VP of Live Earth Products. And later, an extended conversation with Neville Spear from Drovers. I am your broadcast host. Welcome to AgriTalk, everyone. I'm so glad you've chosen to spend some time with us this morning. Chip is traveling. He's in the wind. But don't worry, he'll be back tomorrow morning. This afternoon, I've got a fantastic conversation lined up with Jody Lawrence. That's going to be a good one. This morning, I brought in a few new voices with some new ideas, some innovations that I kind of just want to talk about a little bit. One of the things that I definitely want to try and pull out from some of these conversations is how is it different working in the field of ag technology than working in technology in other sectors? Are there, unique challenges maybe that these folks are coming up with here? Some of the things we're going to talk about include some really interesting, what am I trying to say? An organic way to fertilize. They're talking about organic fertilizers for one. We're going to talk about that. And then we've got the founder and CEO of Sabanto. This is where the technology comes in, talking about some of these autonomous AI-driven tractors and things. It's a self-driving tractor seems like an incredible investment, just a crazy thing to throw money at right now when money is tight. I know some have done it, and I know that some are skeptical. So this is kind of a new take on that Craig Rupp is going to bring to us today. I'm looking forward to digging in to what he's got to offer us here. And then, as I said, later on, we're going to talk a little bit of fertilizer with some organic fertilizer products. The 2023 CCA Conservationist of the Year, Russell Taylor, will join us to discuss that. And then later on the show, we're going to have Neville Spear from Drovers. I want to talk to him for a little bit longer than we usually do in his 2-minute hit. Let's get to know Neville a little bit, and let's talk about this cattle market. As I said, the fat cattle lower, hogs lower, but the feeder cattle popped a little higher this morning already. We'll have to see how all of that shakes out. In the meantime, let's talk a little news. The National Weather Service outlook: a rapidly developing coastal storm is expected to bring a period of gusty winds, enhanced rainfall, and thunderstorms from the Carolinas to the mid-Atlantic states. That's Thursday night into Friday. Lower elevation and coastal rain and mountain snow will continue for the PNW today. A rain-snow mix will spread inland across the Great Basin and Rockies Thursday and Friday. Most of the country will see seasonable to above-average temperatures to end the week. We got a really nice rain yesterday here in Kansas City. I know that we needed it, and I saw that storm move over across western Iowa, across that state there. Some much-needed rain, and we got to get the soil moisture recharged here. And at least here locally, yesterday was a great start toward that end. Here's a U.S. daily export sale: 176,000 metric tons of soybeans to unknown destinations in the 24-25 marketing year. As we watch the soybean price drop, one shouldn't be surprised. The lower the price goes, maybe importers are becoming more and more interested. This is how low prices can cure low prices. The Dow and S&P 500 managed to finish higher yesterday, with the Dow staying in positive territory most of the day, while the S&P 500 moved back slightly higher by the close. The NASDAQ ended lower. Lots on the election stuff here. The GOP has not only regained control of the White House and the Senate, but also managed to hold on to a narrow majority in the House. This, according to the Associated Press, which called it late yesterday. Democrats have so far won 208 seats, while some contests are still uncalled. Key Republican wins included flipping districts in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Colorado, while Democrats made gains in New York and redistricted Alabama and Louisiana. I've been watching this here. Senator John Thune of South Dakota has been named Senate Majority Leader. Thune's election as Majority Leader is considered beneficial for the U.S. ag sector for several reasons. Those reasons include his agricultural background, his farm bill experience, his support for conservation, and he also brings with him a very experienced staff. This leadership change marks the end of Mitch McConnell's, he's from Kentucky, 18-year tenure as the Senate's Republican leader. Thune will assume the role of Majority Leader for the next 2 years, coinciding with President-elect Donald Trump's second term. The full House of Representatives will vote to elect its Speaker on the opening day of the new Congress, which is January 3rd. While Mike Johnson has won the Republican nomination for Speaker, he still needs to secure 218 votes. That's a simple majority of the 435 House seats. Senator Marco Rubio, was officially nominated by President Trump to serve as Secretary of State following leaked reports earlier in the week. In his statement, Rubio described the nomination as a, quote, tremendous responsibility and pledged to uphold Trump's peace through strength foreign policy. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. reportedly aims to eliminate processed food from school lunches and restrict food dyes, signaling a significant shift in Trump's food regulation plans. While some praise his efforts to promote healthier food, his controversial background as a vaccine critic raises concerns among some public health officials. Federal Reserve officials emphasize that future monetary policy decisions will remain data dependent, with Fed Governor Adriana Kugler noting progress on price stability and employment while cautioning against premature rate cuts. Fed Chair Jerome Powell reiterated the need for flexibility, stating that persistent inflation would justify pausing cuts, while a sudden labor market slowdown could prompt gradual reductions. Just 36% of U.S. households earned enough to afford a new home in the third quarter of this year. That compares to 59% in the same period in 2019. Factory gate prices in the U.S. rose 0.2% month over month in October 2024. That matched market expectations that followed a 0.1% rise in September. Meanwhile, the U.S. budget deficit expanded to $121 billion in October. Get this, that's up 89% from last year, mainly due to increased spending on health, defense, and rising debt interest costs. This, according to the Treasury Department. And we're going to need to figure out more on this, but the American Farm Bureau Federation has decided to terminate the Illinois Farm Bureau's membership effective December 20, 2024. AFBF President Zippy Duvall stated that the decision to vote out the Illinois Farm Bureau is related to maintaining, quote, farmer control of organizational decisions. Of note here, while the Illinois Farm Bureau will no longer be part of the American Farm Bureau Federation, it will continue to operate as a state-level organization. We'll have to get somebody on to talk about this situation right here. But for now, we are moving on. My next guest is going to bring us some new ideas. We're going to talk about innovation in agriculture and how that might help out the labor, might help out sustainability, might help out on a number of different levels. We're going to dig in with Craig Rupp next on AgriTalk. AgriTalk is brought to you by ESN. Don't risk your nitrogen investment. ESN is designed to beat the 5 ROI killers and provide season-long end to your crop. Learn how ESN works at smartnitrogen.com. Welcome back to AgriTalk, everyone. Your pal Davis Michaelsen here behind the big green leafy microphone of AgriTalk. Excited to be here today. A couple of new voices here. We're going to begin here with Sabanto Inc. They say, quote, just as the advent of the plow or irrigation systems revolutionized agriculture in the past, artificial intelligence, AI, is set to transform the landscape of farming in ways we could only imagine. With that, let me bring in the founder and CEO of Sabanto Inc., Craig Rupp. Craig, welcome to AgriTalk. Thanks for being with us this morning, buddy. How are you?
Good, and thank you for having me, Davis. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm fascinated by what you folks have got going on there. Let me let me just do some housekeeping here first. Are we talking about Sabanto or Sabanto? I want to make sure and say the name right, sir.
Sabanto.
Okay, very good. Talk to us about Sabanto Inc. Just generally, broadly, what are you folks up to?
Yeah, we create a retrofit kit that attaches to the tractor you already have sitting in your machine shed. I think your next generation autonomous tractor is already sitting in your machine shed. And so what we do is we come out to your farm, we install our equipment onto your tractor, and then we turn it into an autonomous tractor, and we're doing all sorts of field operations across the United States.
That is fascinating. So what you're doing is taking out some of the expense of automating the fleet on the farm. I think that may be just one benefit. Fair?
That's fair. Obviously, we're targeting just a lack of labor,
Mm-hmm.
and but we see a future where tractors are the Swiss Army knives of agriculture,
Yeah.
and and they're really they're ubiquitous in agriculture, and we're using that platform to take autonomy into agriculture, as opposed to creating a custom machine that has to be supported, and the infrastructure is already out there for tractors as well.
So once you have installed this technology onto an existing implement, onto a tractor, is it now just purely dedicated to autonomous operation, or can you also get in there and still drive it the old-fashioned way?
With a flip of a switch, you can turn it from a manually operated, just like you normally operate it, into an autonomous tractor.
Is it like a cool toggle switch? I don't know. There's something about a toggle switch. You flip it and a little red light comes on and off you go. I find that very exciting, the idea.
It's
But I
exactly
feel
what
like
it
that's a
is.
okay. So you got the toggle switch going. We checked that box. You can still drive it as a regular tractor, and yet um, you can run it autonomously too. So help me get my head around like maybe practical applications. A farmer has this installed. I'm pretty excited because now I'm able to what?
So we're focused on really, very mundane field operations at this point.
Okay.
We see a future where, more complex field operations are being performed autonomously. But we're doing a lot of very mundane and what I call high frequency field operations where they're out there, ideally every day, preferably every week, or even once a month. Like, for example, we're really getting involved with hay operations because in some parts of the country, they'll do 8 to 10 cuttings a year, and these large hay operations, they're doing 200, 300 acres per day, and it's the same fields, over and over, and it's very mundane to do, some of these field operations.
Does your company guarantee straight rows? For me, that would
Uh,
be among the largest benefits is to get a nice straight row going.
Absolutely. Our GNSS receiver, we have
Mhm.
sub 2 centimeter accuracy, and
Wow.
the rows are as straight as you can make it. And, so we have a path planner in our mission control. Our mission control is web-based, so you can use it with
Okay.
your iPhone, Android, even sitting back in your office on your computer. And and what we do is we can create path plans, if you want it, if you're tilling at plus 10 degrees, or if you
Mhm.
want it minus 10 degrees, you can go through and absolutely change that and create path plans per, whatever's required.
Yeah. Um, I don't know the answer to this question here, but is there a data collection and storage component to this as well? I'm thinking about maybe guidance would require some sort of grid mapping or something like that. How do you manage that?
Well, when the only thing you have to do to prep a field is and you have to do this once. We have to get the field boundaries. So normally what we
Okay.
do is when we deploy a system or prior to deploying a system in a field, we have to basically drive the boundary of the field, and that establishes your geofence. Now, in regards to data, we're collecting a ton of data as to uh, you know every every aspect of the tractor is geotagged and time stamped, and it flows up into the cloud, and all that data is available. Farmer owns the data, and then what we do is we create roll-ups, dashboards of how efficient this field operation was, or how efficient the multiple systems are. You can compare one to the other.
This is some Jetsons like style technology. Does it require an operator to remain in the cab even if you're using hands-off automation here to work the field?
No,
Can I just push a button and send the tractor out to the back 40 and it'll come back when it's done?
yeah, it's pretty much that. We've
Really?
also Yeah, we've also implemented we call it a virtual field operator. So some farmers, they like to, they'll run their system for a number of weeks, and then what they want is they want someone sitting in an office,
Hmm.
deploying this, moving it from one field to the next. And we have what's called virtual field operators. So I have some virtual field operators. They're controlling 10 tractors across the United States, working
Wow.
with farming operations. In the morning, they call her and tell her, I want, field A, field B, and field C done today.
Hmm.
And her responsibility is the farmer will park the system in field A. She
Hmm.
will, perform the field operation in field A, then move it from field A to field B on private drives
Hmm.
currently, and then
Hmm.
perform field B. And she'll do this throughout the day and into the night as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I reckon they sit there with like a PlayStation controller kind of a thing is what I'm envisioning. That can't be right.
Now think of have you ever played Farming Simulator?
Oh yeah, yeah, yep.
It's like it's like the real deal, though. There's
That's cool.
you, it's not a it's not necessarily a video game. It's an
Right,
actual tractor, and we have
right.
cameras, and she routinely looks at cameras to make sure everything's going fine.
Yeah. This is a big deal from your press release. According to Newsweek, more than 141,000 farms have been lost over 5 years due to a shortage of workers. This could certainly remedy that to a degree, couldn't it, sir?
Absolutely. And what I want to do is I want to bring in a new generation of farmers.
Yeah.
Um, I've said this before. I think autonomy is going to bring horsepower in the other direction,
Hmm.
and bring costs of entering agriculture, bring those down. That's my
Yeah.
goal.
I'm
Mhm.
glad that you brought up that next generation because as farm kids and others who are interested in the ag industry look around at an ever evolving technological world, there is a place in ag for some pretty high tech development, isn't there?
Absolutely. It's it's their world, and I think the
Yeah.
most successful ag companies in the future will have leveraged the next generation.
Mm, that's great. That's really good right there. Craig
Yeah.
Rupp, founder and CEO of Sabanto Inc. If folks are interested, where can they find out more?
Then go to our website. It's sabantoag.com.
SabantoAg.com. That's Sabanto ag.com. Craig, this is fascinating. I'd like to keep in touch. I have more questions. We're just out of time. Thank you for sharing your story with us. We'll be back. I want to talk some more, buddy. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you, Davis. I appreciate it.
Sure thing. Craig Rupp, founder and CEO of Sabanto Inc. That's SabantoAg.com if you're interested in more. All right. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about fertilizers, but first we're going to hit the markets real quick. AgriTalk.
Welcome to another United Soybean Board Soy Checkoff Check-in. I'm your host and the host of AgriTalk, Chip Flory. Glad that you are making some time to check in on the Soy Checkoff. Susan Watkins serves on USB's Executive and Value Alignment Committee, and she is the Innovation and Technology Priority Area Coordinator. Susan grows soybeans, corn, and wheat in Virginia with her son. Susan, welcome to the Soy Checkoff Check-in. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much, Chip, for having me on today.
You bet. You bet. You had a challenging 2024 growing season, didn't you, Susan?
Yeah, I say as usual, we had the crazy weather in Virginia. The growing season was, with extreme, hot and dry conditions. But, we also had an overabundance of rain throughout the year. Right now, we're yielding well. We did receive timely rains for our soybeans. Our corn crop was probably cut by about 30% this year. We had a good wheat crop. But right now, we've not had rain in well over a month. We probably had over 7 inches from the remnants of Helene, but we're extremely dry now. We're getting the harvest done, but, we need moisture right now.
Okay. All right. We're talking today about the innovation and technology supply, and how are the investments from the Soy Checkoff helping bean producers manage some of those production challenges and ultimately to create some new uses through the technology that's in the field?
Yeah, I think right now, Chip, farmers are currently planting approximately 94% of their soybean acreage with seed enhanced by biotechnology. So USB is investing in research and continue to speed up the process to get biotech soybeans to the market. It's been a game changer for a lot of us. And so we want to stay ahead of the curve in combating pest, weeds, and disease.
Yep. And Susan, there's some output traits that the checkoff is investing in, correct?
Yes. Isolate soybeans. That's one area that's in our work group also. And they're being developed and released in more areas where they've not been commercially grown or available before. And USB is focused on expanding high-oleic soybeans to include more maturity groups. So farmers will have more access to premiums and growing the specialty soybeans. So we have the demand is there.
Yeah.
Since we've been very limited in our resources of getting those maturity groups and getting the premiums.
Right.
So it's been pocket areas, and they're trying to expand that to satisfy the demand.
Excellent. So turn all this into some practical use on the farm. Why is this work important to farmers, Susan?
All our technology, it's changing daily. And as I said, our growing seasons, our weather conditions, it seems to be changing yearly. What we used to always plant corn first, and we would leave the bean planter in the shed. But we have found that with technology, we put our beans in the ground before our corn now.
Right. Susan, I want to do this. I want to go back to the plant breeding innovation that is resulting from some of the investments that the United Soybean Board, the Soy Checkoff, is making out there. Talk to me about that, why it is so important to farmers.
Well, again, everybody wants to have return on investment. And I think that there's a demand on the farmers to keep producing a quality crop. But we have restrictions, we have environmental issues, and we have to stay on top of our game so that we continue to produce a valuable crop, but do it in an environmentally sound way that, we will sustain, for generations to come. I'm in Virginia. We've been growing crops since before the colonists settled. And our land is just as productive and profitable as anywhere in the United States.
Yeah. Yep. And a lot of the investment that is made in research and development of the genetics out there in the field by the Soy Checkoff is very, very important. Susan, I've enjoyed our time. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Chip. And I hope this gives a good overview of what we're doing. And again, all while we're protecting our soils and our environment for our generations to come.
That is Virginia farmer Susan Watkins. Susan is on the USB's Executive and Value Alignment Committee, and she is the Innovation and Technology Priority Area Coordinator. Thanks for checking out this installment of the Soy Checkoff Check-in. You can learn more about how your soy checkoff dollars are invested at unitedsoybean.org. I'm your host, Chip Flory. Now, let's get back to AgriTalk.
Opinions expressed on AgriTalk do not necessarily reflect the views of Farm Journal Broadcasting, affiliate stations, or sponsors. We don't make the news, we render it. AgriTalk. Welcome back to AgriTalk, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. Your pal Davis Michaelsen here. Chip is traveling. He'll be back tomorrow. Don't worry about it. Everything's okay. I'm anxious to speak with my next guest, Russell Taylor, VP of Live Earth Products and the 2023 CCA Conservationist of the Year. Taylor suggests that because nitrogen fertilizer use is so widespread, farmers looking to reduce emissions or prepare for future regulations, should consider humates, like humic and fulvic acids, as a simple way to minimize environmental impact. I'm already in over my skis here. Russell Taylor from Live Earth Products, welcome to AgriTalk. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Give us the elevator speech on Live Earth Products. What do you got there? What's the story?
We mine and manufacture humic acids, and most people aren't familiar with humic acids. They're a component of your soil organic matter. So basically, we're mining an ancient plant deposit, isolating those organic acids, and then using them in different markets to help stabilize nutrients and other amendments.
Okay. So basically what you're trying to do is keep the stuff where the stuff has been placed. Is that an oversimplification probably?
No, you nailed it. That's really it. Is we're trying to take these nutrients, put them in the root zone, and let the plant have a longer opportunity to look at those nutrients before they're lost, volatilized, or converted through natural processes.
Wow. I like that idea. Live Earth Products, apparently here, a family-run business, 30 years plus of hard work and innovation. I guess my question for you, Russell, and you may not know the answer to this, but what was going on 30 years ago that made the family start this business or move down this road here?
Well, sometimes success starts with tragedy. My father was actually in the coal mines. There was a fire, and he left the coal mines and said, you know what, this is not a life for me and my children. And He was using his mining knowledge, consulting. They found a deposit, and the consultant said, well, this might not make what we're looking for, but it might make a fertilizer. And my father just ran with it. So, I was a young kid, 9 years old, out there helping my father mine these things. So it's kind of the real American story where, I wouldn't say rags to riches, but it was tough times now and finally success. So hard to sell conservation in the 80s, but we're seeing it now.
Absolutely. And that is mining the sort of thing that kind of gets in your blood. I mean, he went from mining and said, nope, I'm done with this. And then went and started another mine is what it sounds like to me.
Well, you take your skill set and apply it elsewhere. So it's like farming, you move from one crop to another. I don't know if changing from soybeans to corn is all that hard. It's just a, different mindset.
Yep. Well said. Your recent research shows that adding these humates, mineral-rich organic matter that can help temper some of the questionable impacts of synthetic nitrogen. Am I looking at this right? Is this an organic nitrogen versus a synthetic nitrogen, like a urea or an NH3 kind of a thing? Have I got that right?
No. Actually,
okay.
The amendment you're adding is organic. So humic acids and humates are organic products. However, when you blend them with synthetic fertilizers, you're not just limited to using these in organic crops. We did a university trial with the University of Tennessee. We did both granular applied urea and UAN side dress, and they were applying the humic acid with that nitrogen application. And we actually got significantly more bushels by applying the nitrogen with the humic acid. And all you're doing is you're reducing those nitrogen losses. So just like you have urease inhibitors that change that microbial reaction, sometimes what you have is just a limited ability of that soil to store those nutrients. So you're actually using that tool to help store the nutrient, make it last longer.
Now, your press release also made mention of the Haber-Bosch process, which is used in creating those synthetic nitrogen fertilizers. Why is that process of a concern to you and to Live Earth Products?
Well, it's a concern to everybody. Most of our nitrogen is actually made through the Haber-Bosch process, which utilizes fossil fuels. So anytime you're using these nitrogen-based fertilizers, you have a carbon footprint. Anytime you can reduce the amount of nitrogen you're using, you're also reducing that carbon footprint. So it's a way of, it's kind of a double dip, because these products, once they're in the ground, they can convert to like nitric oxide and other greenhouse gases. So by reducing that conversion, you get a benefit. You're no longer contributing as much greenhouse gas. But in addition, if you're reducing your nitrogen utilization and getting a more improved nutrient use efficiency, you've actually reduced your carbon footprint by just using less of those fossil fuels used to make some of your nitrogen products.
By my math, that's a double dip, isn't it?
Yep, it is. And it's, a lot of times we talk about regenerative agriculture and some of these really, esoteric things that are a bit further out for the mainstream farmer. And sometimes these mainstream ideas like, look, let's reduce our carbon footprint with our current practices. We're not doing anything different. We're not changing our nitrogen. We're simply making a more efficient use of that. And the interesting thing about this concept is we're not doing this just in corn. These same products are being used in places that your listeners might be real familiar with, like the Rose Bowl Stadium. Mm-hmm. Live Earth Products has been on the Rose Bowl Stadium since 2006. How are they keeping that stadium green? Yeah, it's by using these products to stabilize those fertilizers in the root zone longer. Yeah.
And I'm sure that there are positive benefits for just all of the living organic matter inside the soil as well. That can never be a bad thing.
No, we're seeing all kinds of interesting things. And it really depends on your soil texture. But yeah, a lot of times we're seeing really tough soils that are having drainage issues, a lot of times impacting your soil organic matter also impacts other things besides nutrient retention, water conservation, better soil aggregate formation. That impacts, it kind of a snowball effects where we're seeing better auction, more root growth, and those kind of things that kind of snowball from there.
Yeah, that's terrific. In the little blurb that I read here at the beginning, part of what's motivating your company looking to reduce emissions or prepare for future regulations. Talk to me about those future regulations. What might that look like, and how might Live Earth Products answer the potential for some of that kind of thing?
Well, I would like to just kind of take our mindset in the 80s and 90s, and a lot of times more yield just meant more fertilizer. And the problem is a lot of these soils, that was it. The fertilizer was cheap, we'll just supply more of it, and that's where we get our yield. And the problem is we're running into, this nitrogen is not all staying in the soil. It's going into the aquifers, it's getting run off into the oceans. Somewhere along the way, in the next, 10, 20 years, however far down the road you want to look, there's going to be some regulations say, look, we've got to minimize our runoff and our leaching. We've got to get better at our nutrient use efficiency. And it was interesting in previous years, like 2021, 2022, you saw fertilizer prices really spike up. And previous to that, we weren't getting a lot of, nutrient use efficiency calls like, hey, let's try to stretch our dollars out here. And when urea spiked up from, $250 to, $1,100 or whatever it was at your local elevator, all of a sudden those guys that were like, hey, tell me about that nutrient use efficiency thing again. So it's funny what drives the wagon. And I don't see, if I was looking at my magic ball going forward, I don't see, cheap fertilizers. I see fertilizers still being elevated a little bit. We need to plan ahead and get these practices in place. So when fertilizers do go up, you can't, soil health is not a magic wand. You can't wave that in 1 year. It's a long game. And as you slowly build up the soil organic matter, you impact water conservation and nutrient retention. So let's, talking about it now will help us plan for the future.
Does this need to be applied at the same time as the nitrogen application, or could you maybe go out and put this down in the fall and then do some pre-plant nitrogen?
We have farmers that do both. There are some tricks with applying humic acids, and in the granular form, sometimes humic acid and nitrogen, when the reaction occurs in the tender, everybody's upset because it's going to gum up the tender. So a lot of people are applying the granular products separate from the nitrogen. The liquid products, they apply together. So typically you're seeing, your UAN mixed with the humic acid and applied at the same time. So it's a combination of both. The nice thing about humic acid, it's stable. It's going to last your soil for decades, if not centuries. And so over time, it slowly accumulates. So there's no bad time to get it down, but a lot of people will put it down with their fertilizer because it does seem to help stretch out some of those nutrient interactions that might be negative with the soil.
All right. Well, after 30 years in business, I mean, the stuff must work. Can you talk to us about some the user experiences with Live Earth?
Yeah. So again, it always varies on soil type and texture. And some of the things you'll see, I'm in the West, so a lot of the things I'm dealing with, like water conservation and high pH, might not be as relative to some of the people in the Midwest. So, but that's some of the things we see is, and when you talk about water conservation, people think, well, I got, real sticky ground. I'm dealing with drain tiles. I'm not trying to, conserve water. I'm trying to get rid of water out of the soil. And what we're trying to deal with is soil aggregation. Now, soil aggregation, think of it like the caramel in a nut roll. What causes that thing to kind of stick together? Okay. And that's usually your organic matter. When you impact organic matter, you form soil aggregates, and that improves your macropores and your micropores. Your micropores are primarily what hold your moisture. Your macropores actually help drain water away. And so by impacting your macropores and your micropores, you actually improve both drainage and water conservation. And that loosens up your soil and gives you a more tilt and friable soil texture. And so that's important to all soil types that are dealing with both compaction and waterlogging, because we're trying to improve that soil texture.
Yeah, and as I understand it, you're coming from an agronomy background, right? An agronomist's viewpoint?
Yeah. So I'm a certified crop advisor. My background is agronomy. That's all I do is soils. I'm not a corn guy. I can't really speak to genetics and some of those things. But sure. Yeah, that's my background is soils.
Well, Russell Taylor from Live Earth Products. Oh, real quick, tell us where we can get more on Live Earth Products, please.
Sure. Online, liveearth.com. You spell that with one E. It's livearth.com.
Russell Taylor, this is fascinating. I'd love to keep in touch with you as the years go by. We appreciate you taking time to talk to us today, sir. Have a great day.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Russell Taylor, Live Earth Products. We got Neville Spear from Drovers next. The best talkers in ag, including you. Join the conversation on AgriTalk. Call us at 855-4TALK-AG. Well, happy Thursday, everyone. Your pal Davis Michaelsen here on AgriTalk. Some really fascinating discussions there about some innovations and some things. Craig Rupp, Russell Taylor, good stuff. Let me bring in our own Neville Spear from Drovers for a bit of an extended conversation. Neville, good morning. How's it going, buddy?
Good morning, Davis. I'm doing great. How about you?
Well, as I understand it, you've got a fresh new haircut, so you're one up on me, brother.
No, not yet. I've got to go do it yet. So
so there's time. There's time. I got to go to my barber too, buddy.
Okay. It's a priority for Thursday. Yeah.
That's right. Hey, let's talk consumer demand. It's been a whole thing here. Consumer spending really interests me because, last week I was Chip and I were talking on the air here. I was looking at my flyer at, the differences between a pork roast and a beef roast and a steak and a pork chop and all of that sort of stuff. And if you look at it on paper, you would think, man, beef's expensive. People got to be leaning into pork, but they're not, Neville. What can you tell us?
It kind of just comes back to what Chip and I were talking about last week, right? In terms of beef quality. And he used this great phrase a couple weeks ago that it leads to comeback customers. I love that phrase, by the way.
Yeah.
It really is, it's driving the business. And so if the Livestock Marketing Information Center compiles spending data, and we just got the third quarter data back from them. And so, okay. Third quarter spending, beef spending per capita was $124. That's during during the quarter. That's a brand new record. The previous record happened in the first quarter of the year. So we've now, we've topped ourselves in terms of beef spending. And so for the year, we're at $363, and okay, that all gets kind of wonky. The important part is through the third quarter, we're $16 ahead of last year. That's per person, right? So multiply that times 338 million people. But most important, that is about a 4.5% growth rate. We're beating inflation. Beef spending is beating inflation. We have pricing power, and it really does. It just comes back to that whole item of beef quality. What's interesting, even this was mentioned yesterday in Tyson's earning call, where they were talking about that at the retail level, retailers are continually trying to focus around this opportunity, and consumers are actually outperforming their expectations in the beef section.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just incredible. Yeah, it's such a great story.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating. And meanwhile, if we look at cattle futures here, I mean, people are talking about, wow, are we topping here? This feels toppy. We're at very high levels, and yet it just sort of keeps going. I want to talk about the relationship of maybe tighter herds but heavier shackle weights. How does that impact all of this?
So that's really the other part of the story that's so great is, yes, we have had tighter numbers, but as we continue to talk about and we see is that fed beef production has kept up and even surpassed last year. So we're almost on pace to have the second highest year ever. And so we're doing these higher spending on bigger volume. And I said to somebody last week at a conference, they were asking about consumer spending and when does the consumer finally hit the wall? And I said, we've been talking about that since 2015, and that we haven't hit it yet.
Maybe there isn't a wall, Neville.
Maybe there isn't. As long as we can continue to deliver in terms of quality and consistency, I think maybe we're in a pretty strong paradigm. Now, obviously, you can't have pricing power forever, but we are in the consumer business, and those dollars ultimately is what flows back into the cattle business. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
It's a great story.
Engage your periscope there. Look into 2025 a little bit. And we're speculating here. It's only November. I mean, 2025 is a month and a half away. Maybe we should talk about it a little bit. What do you see through that periscope?
Well, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't just kind of continue the trend that we're on, unless something crazy happens, and that's always possible. But we finally at least have some stability. We've gotten through the election. It looks like inflation is sort of moderating. Interest rates are at least going to stabilize, and so I think everyone has a little bit more certainty, both whether you're a producer or whether you're a consumer. I think most people are feeling a little bit better about the world going forward because at least everything's knowable. And that's always good, both for spending and then also for producers, right? Uncertainty is what just makes havoc in markets.
Absolutely. And that's kind of one of the things that we get to preach in sometimes what you need to do is just get a hold of your variables and check those boxes so that you minimize the amount of risk that comes from not knowing this sort of stuff.
Davis, one of my favorite sayings is things that never happen all the time. Right. So it's always the unknowable, the uncertainty. And so you always, as a producer, I'm always preaching about, boy, yes, this feels really good and it feels really certain, but this is also the time, hey, let's lock in a floor here. Let's use some options. Let's think about LRPs and let's take advantage of what the market is giving us too. Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm going to use a dirty word, the P word. Is the packer making money? Can they pay for cattle?
No, they're not making money, but they have to pay for cattle. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go.
There it is. Okay.
Neville, thank you for the extended remix on the discussion today. I love talking with you, brother. Good luck with your haircut.
Love it. Okay. Thank you. Have a great day.
You bet. That was Neville Spear from Drovers. Wow. Yeah, that per capita beef spending totaled $124 per in Q3. That's up from Q1 at $120, and he talked about Q2 dipped back just a little bit. Yeah, that was at $119, so we're right in there with that. Thank you so much to all my guests, Craig Rupp, Russell Taylor, of course, Neville Spear. This afternoon, I'll have Jody Lawrence at 2:06 Central for our PM AgriTalk broadcast. So for Big Apple Joe Stackler, I'm your pal, Davis Michaelsen. Thank you for tuning into AgriTalk. We'll talk again real soon.